Hello everybody. Today I'm going to do a shootout between the Concept 2 rower and the Rogue Echo bike. The reason this came up is I was talking to a friend of mine. She's very into fitness. She's super physically fit. I said, man, you've really got to try this Echo bike thing. It is amazing. I think it's probably a better piece of workout gear than a Concept 2 rower. She loves the Concept 2 rower, and so she started asking questions about the Echo bike. So I said, yeah, it's exactly the same as an Airdyne. It's just the Echo bike is a lot beefier and it costs less than the top of the line new Airdynes. So she said, I don't like Airdynes. I've tried to use them before. I think they're terrible. So because I'm stubborn and I already had an opinion, I tried to mansplain to her how great the Echo bike is, but she was patient with me and got me thinking about this. The problem is she's very small. She's a small person, extremely long legs, relatively short arms, not in proportion to her body, but she's just a short person. And so she got me thinking about the fact that really with an Airdyne or an Echo bike, that it's set up for a person of relatively average proportions. So by that I mean if you are extremely tall or you're extremely short, then an Airdyne or an Echo bike is probably not built for you. And so let's talk about these things. There's some differences between these two things. They're not the same and they're different enough that I think it warrants a question as to which one's better. So right off the bat, I'm going to go ahead and show the motion of a person who's doing some work on a Concept 2 rower. So we'll start with the Concept 2 rower. All right, here we go. This is the familiar design we all know and love. So what are you doing with a Concept 2 rower? Okay, you're putting your feet in the foot holders, and then you're simulating a rowing motion. So when you think about the muscles that you're working out, you're working out quads, maybe a little bit of glutes, right? And then bicep, back of the shoulder, and then muscles in the middle of your back. Now, technically, you're working out every muscle in your body, some more than others though. Let's be realistic about this. Like here, maybe I'm putting my abs under a little bit of tension at the end of the stroke, and then I have to bring myself upright. But this is not an ab workout. It just isn't. And it's not realistic to say that it is. Okay, so primarily, again, quads, glutes, bicep, back of shoulder, just like you do with a bent over row. And then the middle of your back. So you're hitting your lower back and your abs a little bit to stabilize your core. It's not a huge workout there, maybe more so on middle of the back. It's a light workout. And then really not so much your lats. You'd have to be pulling like this in order to engage your lats, right? You'd have to be sort of bent over so you're pulling down. So it's working those muscle groups, and if you're being honest, it's leaving a lot of muscle groups alone. Like any muscle that involves pushing, right? So I'm not engaging these that much. And the reality is, how much glute am I really getting in here? Not all that much, right? It's mostly quads, maybe some glutes, mostly quads. You've got some pulling action in here, so I guess you're engaging a tiny amount of hamstring, but again, very light. But here's the upside to it. Regardless of your size, you get your legs from contracted like this to fully locked out. So whether you're big or tall or short or whatever, you're getting a full range of motion in here, right? Full range of motion in here. All right, also, the muscles in your back that you're engaging, it's a big muscle group, right? So you're using a lot of muscles to do this. As far as cardio workouts go, if you've ever used one of these things, you just know this thing is a cardio workout. You can get your heart rate anywhere you want to by using one of these things. So that's the upside. What is the downside? To me, I think the downside is the number of muscles engaged. Again, you're not engaging any pushing muscles whatsoever. Not really doing much for your abs. I know people claim that this is a big ab exercise. It's just, it's real. Let's be realistic. It's not. Lower back a tiny bit, but not so much. Lats, very little, right? So it's all these muscles in the middle of your back between your shoulder blades that are getting engaged, okay? So that is the Concept 2 rower. This is a hugely popular piece of fitness equipment, and that's for good reason. It is an amazing piece of fitness gear. I definitely recommend it for somebody that's thinking about getting one. Now, let's talk about the Rogue Echo Bike. Okay, when you're on the Echo Bike, what muscles are we engaging here? You probably should not be engaging your calves, but you might be, right? When you're bicycling, you want your heels to be low and not really burning out your calves, but you can exercise them. What else is it hitting? Quads, glutes, your core a little. Maybe, I'm going to say maybe a little less than the rower just because you're not changing posture so much on this. But now with upper body, here's the difference. You've got the same pulling action that you have with the rower. So you're hitting bicep, back of your shoulder, the middle of your back. But you're also pushing. You're pushing, so you're getting pectoral, you're getting front of shoulder. So there's more muscle groups engaged when you do this. And you'll feel it. So if you do just a few minutes on this thing, you'll realize this is no joke. This thing will engage a ton of muscle groups and it'll really get them going. Now, the other thing that I see is as people do this on an assault bike, they'll change their body geometry. They'll lean forward. What is that doing? It's engaging more top of shoulder now, right? Or they're leaning back. What's that doing? Engaging traps. So, as far as number of muscle groups hit, this one is hitting pretty much all the ones that the rower is hitting, and then some more. So this is hitting more muscle groups. Now, what are the downsides of this? Okay, check out my legs. I'm not drawing them all the way up like I'm doing on a rower. So it's a limited range of motion. And this is true on bicycles too, right? Like the bicycle crank arms only come in a few standard sizes. So if you have exceptionally long, or in my case, maybe exceptionally short legs, the crank arms aren't necessarily that appropriate for you. So you get less range of motion in your legs. When you're doing cardio, there's a reason why cardio relies so much on legs. It's just tons of muscle down here to engage. If you had to get your heart pumping enough to supply blood to your biceps, it would take you forever to get your heart rate up, right? But if you're putting blood in your quads and glutes, those are giant muscle groups and it doesn't take long to get your heart rate up, okay? So, but my legs are not moving as far, they're not moving as far as they would be with a rower. Now, in bicycling terms, I guess some people would say, well, why don't you put clipless pedals on here and then you can actually pull the pedal up to you. This has been studied so many times in bicycling. Even professional cyclists do not do this. Your exercise here is pushing down. That's it. You're pushing down on the pedal, so you engage in glutes and quads, okay? So lower leg, you're actually probably getting a better exercise on the C2. It's a longer range of motion, which means you're going to engage more muscles. Upper body, same thing with the C2. You go from lockout to until the bar touches your chest. You can see that when this thing stops here, it's still a good ways away from my torso, like this, which is what? That's like 14 inches, right? No, it's like 3 or 4 inches away from my chest. So the range of motion that I'm getting on the handlebars is also not as great, okay? So you're engaging more muscle groups, but everything you're engaging has a shorter range of motion than it did on the C2. Okay, so net, I still feel like the air bike does more. It engages more muscles, requires your heart to pump more blood. That's why you get these crazy things like 300 calories in 10 minutes on an air bike. That's nuts. I mean, just 10 minutes and you burn 300 calories. Okay, so the other thing though that I'm going to touch on is the geometry of this does not work if you're extremely tall or you're extremely short. If you're extremely tall, you're going to be up here, right? And so you're moving these things and you're moving them down low. That is not the same as me moving them here, right? If you're very short, or like my friend who has a very short torso, her legs are as long as mine, her torso is much shorter. That's because I have extremely short legs, she has extremely long legs. But when she's pushing now, she's pushing from here, right? So she's pushing upwards. It's not the same exercise. She hates it. It doesn't work for her. So the thing to keep in mind is if you're of relatively medium build, and my body is medium enough that this kind of works for me. Actually, it works great for me. But if you have an unusual build, meaning you're very tall, very short, you have unusual proportions, it's possible that this thing is a terrible machine for you. The C2, regardless of your size or proportions, gives you a great workout and lets you exercise full range of motion all the way around. Now, between the two, I'm going to say for a person of medium build, you know, what's medium, right? What's normal? None of us should aspire to be normal, but a person of relatively normal build, I still think this is a little better. The C2 though is really close and works for every body type pretty much. So between the two, which one am I going to say is better? I'm going to say my vote is this one, but it's not so overwhelming that I think it's conclusive. So I think either one of these, I know that that's a cop-out, either one of these is great. Either one of these gets you in shape. Either one of these engages large muscle groups. This one's going to give you a little more work on pushing with your upper body, but that's basically the only real difference. And then that additional pushing motion comes at the cost of not quite full range of motion in anything you're doing on this. So can't go wrong with this or the C2. Whichever one you get, you're going to be happy. So buy with no fear. I think that both of these are purchases that you make and there's not really a way to regret having made these purchases. So go with either one and be happy with it. If your budget allows, go ahead and buy them both. Or if your health club only has one and not the other, talk them into buying the other piece of gear for you. And both of these things I think are slam dunks. They're rock solid, and I don't think anybody who buys either one of these things really regrets it, except maybe my short, attractive young friend who doesn't like the air bike. So have a great workout, everybody. We'll see you soon.